I turn the camera on to talk if it's hard to. I'm 40 years old. I didn't run today. I've started running recently. By recently, I mean the past probably couple months. I've lost a decent amount of weight. Not as much as I want to. I'm not at my goal weight or goal size maybe. But I definitely try to do it pretty regularly. I couldn't do it today. I went out to start, but fucking my legs are shot to shit. So it's time to give it a couple days to rest up. I did pretty well. I did well last week, and I was doing really well for a while. Like a bunch of cars zooming by, Jesus. In all the lanes. Why are they in all the lanes? And they're all getting over, because of course they are. Legs are shot today, which is fine. I kind of wish I do wish I'd started earlier. And again, I've spent most of my life figuring I was going to be dead. About 8 years ago. So when you have that thought, you don't really plan for the future, right? When you're certain that you are going to be not alive at X point, you don't make any plans past X point because it's kind of pointless, and you also don't really, if you have the feeling that your time is limited, you don't really, like I said, you don't plan for the future, but you also, that comes across in two different ways. Like, one, you're not planning for the future, but two, you're also not taking the time for that time. Like, you're not planning, right? You're not doing X, you're not doing Y, you're not making savings, you're not doing, all that stuff is not planning for the future. But at the same time, if you have the feeling that your time is limited, you're also trying to get the most out of what time you have. So your activities are even more wasteful or destructive or, not constructive compared to otherwise, because you're trying to get in the enjoyment of the limited time that you feel like you have. So that sort of impacts how you look at things. But so it's super funny now because I go for a run. It's about 5 miles. It's a little bit over 5 miles. I cannot do it without stopping like I do walk, but my best day I think so far was 1 hour and 8 minutes for 5.13 miles. So not bad. On average, it's a lot closer to 1 hour and 13 minutes. What I've gotten down, I really want to get down to an hour flat, but it's going to take some work and some time, which is fine. Like I said, it's funny because I do the run, and I do it about 4 to 5 days a week. Go out there and run for 5 miles, even with the breaks. But it's funny because my legs are always sore, so it's trippy to go out and exercise, and then to come in and limp around because your legs are so sore from exercising. It's such a weird, almost contradiction on how it should be. Because it's I'm being healthy now, I'm eating, more healthy, or I use a meal prep service, so because I don't like thinking about it. But you fucking, I do that, I do this, that, and the other, and then like you go out and you feel really good because you fucking ran for 5 miles, and you come into the office and now you're like limping around because your legs hurt so much. It's like this is weird, but I have lost weight, which is good. But I've got 2 best friends, and they both, one super recently, like a couple fucking days ago, and the other like last year, maybe year before, just both had fucking babies. And yeah. I always wanted a family because I didn't really have the sort of childhood that anyone should really have. I sort of understood what family was through holiday movies, and it's actually pretty specific, because the thing is, and I avoided like the Tyler Perry movies and all that stuff because that's like drama, and if you're living through situations like that, at least for me, you don't want to spend the time that you have outside of dealing with it, sort of immersing yourself in another representation of it, even if it's funny or entertaining, right? Like you want pure escapism. Like you don't want to deal with that stress and drama, because unlike people who may not live that life, you know what it's like. So, you don't want to, deal with it again. So what's funny or not, what's interesting or what's funny is that, it's the holiday movies that really have that sense of family that other movies may not have. Thanksgiving movies, but specifically Christmas movies. Christmas movies, if you really want like that good, wholesome feeling, and typically not in a super like hokey way, because you have those other movies and they're like, oh, they're about family, huh? But they're like trash. Like you don't want that, right? But if you want if you really want a good sort of fucking feel good, wholesome family movie type thing, you go to Christmas movies. That's where they live. So like, I love Christmas. I actually I'm trying to figure out how comfortable I am. I love December. Is that what it is? I love December. I love when Christmas is in the air. And I know a lot of people get annoyed, right? They're like, it's not Christmas yet. Don't play Christmas music now, blah, blah, blah. I get it. Especially because there's like, 5 Christmas songs, right? Like, I get it. The thing is, though, that when Christmas music really starts hitting the radio, when it really starts hitting the stores, when it really starts sinking in, right, that it's that season, nothing else feels that way. Nothing else the entire year feels like it feels when it's Christmas. And I don't mean like the specific date, but I mean when it's the season, when it's, like everything else I just talked about. That's like the whole vibe of the world changes. And it's like a high almost. Like if you're used to living in the darkness, then seeing the world become brighter and more accepting and more welcoming, like, is the warm blanket that you don't have for the rest of the year. So while I get the annoyance and the frustration behind, people people getting annoyed and frustrated, obviously, at Christmas music starting as soon as it does, that really is the turning point of positivity, of a level of positivity you don't really see over the course of the rest of the year. And it's just a good feeling. But that combined with, like, you know, Christmas movies in family, like it creates this sort of golden movie that you don't get. Like I've watched a lot of movies, and there are quite a lot of good movies out there, but in terms of that really wholesome, without really being super cheesy feeling, Christmas family movies are hard to top. So, you know, growing up, that was my understanding of what a good family should be. And it was trippy, because, you know, I didn't have that, obviously, but we would go to my uncle's house, the one who's in Virginia, and so my grandmother was very emotionally abusive, and psychologically abusive, and to the extent that she was literally, not even sort of, she's basically pariah'd by the family. It was always interesting, because, like, I have an outsider's understanding of what family is. I see the connection that my uncles have, right? I have two uncles, and they have a really good connection to each other. I don't know if I should read that later. And, like, for Christmas time, like, we would go over my grandmother was sort of, the rest of the family did not enjoy spending time with her. So then my mother and myself ended up moving in with her. And so we sort of got caught up in that same thing. So I never really was engaged much with the rest of the family. It was very much like the times that I had to deal with it was, or not deal with it, but the times I got to really experience it was like twice a year. So for Thanksgiving and for Christmas, we would go over to my uncle's house. That was the holidays, and that's, now obviously, I didn't really talk to them outside of those specific days, so I don't know the ins and outs of it, but, you know, it was my uncle, my aunt, they're still together, they had 2 kids. It was very much a family. I believe they actually had, like, 2 dogs, at least 1 dog, you know, and in a nice house. I mean, it was stepping into the world that I saw on TV, for a really brief instant. So, I mean, that was my understanding of holidays, and it changes. I have 2 best friends. I have, like, an almost best friend. He would be upset to know that he's not. He's basically the highest level after those 2. We'll say that. And a couple others that I talk to somewhat regularly, but I don't by any means have a large circle. And my vacation is going home and closing a door and trying not to leave my room for as long as possible, because it costs me energy to interact with people, regardless of how well I can actually do it. It's introversion. But the thing is, even moving out to California, like I send my uncle up here a text maybe 3 to 4 times a year, and that's just like sometimes, a lot of times, he's just checking in with me, or I'm just giving him an update of how I am, or that I'm still alive. He said once that I can disappear better than the FBI, because I can just vanish, because you learn to be self-reliant, right? You learn that you can't depend on anyone else except for yourself. Don't look for anything, and that makes it even more difficult when you trust someone, and especially if they know about all of it, and they take advantage of it, which I guess is, I don't want to say normal. It unfortunately very, very well may be, because people suck. Because people suck. So, but it's funny because you hear that children learn either how to be or how not to be. So I always wanted to not be what I lived through. But I'm 40 years old now. I have no kids. And you get to the point when you just really start to accept that things that you wanted for your life aren't going to be what you had hoped that they were. And it's kind of, my uncle who's up here, or down here, or over here in California, they don't have kids. And you can sort of see that, it kind of leaves an absence, of carrying on to the next generation, of, doing your best to raise someone who, will carry on your legacy and your lineage, and, lets you look at things that you may have been jaded about in different eyes. There's a certain connection with reality, and the future and the past that you get when you have kids. And I say that as someone looking in from the outside, but just sort of looking at the stamp on reality. So, it's like, I get it. They're so excited, and I understand. Since this is I understand. I don't know. Life is rarely what you wanted or expected it to be. sometimes to try to find positives when you feel like you spend most of your time just trying to get through the day, get to tomorrow. Not that tomorrow brings anything better, but yep. It's not always happy.